And we would now like to go over to our leadership keynote. And our speaker today is Mr. Bhaskar Pramanik, former board member, State Bank of India and ex-chairman of Microsoft. May I request you, sir, to kindly come onto the stage and take over. And a huge round of applause as I request Mr. Bhaskar Pramanik to kindly come on stage. Sir.
Thank you. Wow, this is going to be a hard act to follow. So if the previous speaker was talking about the future, I think the reason I'm standing here is because I'm going to relate the future to the past. And that's what I'd like to share with you. A little bit about my past history, because a lot of what he's talked about, I've actually seen it play out over the last 50 years as far as the technology industry is concerned. I also have to admit that after listening to Mr. Dhruva Mukherjee, I suddenly realized that what I wanted to spend time on was about disruption and sustainability, not sustainable disruption. So perhaps that's another view of looking at how do you continue to make a company successful, is if it has a focus on sustainability, and using digital disruption is very, very critical. One of the lessons I've learned in life, especially working for a company called Sun Microsystems, is that technology has the shelf life of a banana. So whatever we talked about as far as the future is concerned, today it's about AI, it's about quantum computing, it's about virtual reality. Think about these as pieces of technology which have come to the fore today, but 20 years from now, there'll be another term. We heard another term called AGI, general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, as distinct from AI. So you will find that technology will continually come. The new technologies gives you an opportunity to disrupt your existing business, but it's more than just technology. It has to be a whole bunch of other things. So anyway, now they've set it up. So let's talk a little bit about, so just to give you a little bit of a background, I graduated from IIT Engineering College about nearly 50 years back. That was the time of unit record machines. It was punched cards. The microprocessor hadn't been invented. And in the 50 years since then, I've worked at IBM as an intern. I worked in HP as the head of sales and marketing. I worked in Digital Equipment Corporation as a vice president of sales and marketing. I worked in Sun Microsystems as the managing director for India, and then as the global VP for their volume business. And then I worked in Microsoft under two leaders, Steve Ballmer and Satya Nadella. And I think a lot of my experiences are based upon that, and I'd like to share some of my observation, especially in the light of what the previous speaker talked about. So if you think about all these companies I've worked for, the three which currently still exist is IBM, but in a completely different form. In my time, when I was an intern, IBM was the largest IT company in the world. When I joined HP, it was primarily a test and measuring instrument company. Then it became a full-fledged test and measuring as well as a computing company, and now it's shrunk to just a small portfolio of different products. Same thing has happened to IBM. When I joined Digital Equipment Corporation, it was at its peak as the inventor of the mini computer, and it was just taking over from the mainframe computers of IBM. It was considered in the late 80s and 90s as the only credible threat to IBM, but it was in the mini computer era. And then I joined Sun Microsystems, which at that point of time was the leader in workstations. They reinvented themselves, they invented the server, and then they came out with the concept of the network is the computer, which is the forerunner of cloud computing. But it also died. And then when I joined Microsoft, it was all about PCs. It was the leader along with Intel and Microsoft, which dominated the PC industry. They were the real winners, not the guys who made the PCs, but Intel and Microsoft. And that business nearly died because it got replaced by the mobile phone. And then Satya Nadella took over and he transformed the company and created into a cloud AI company. He saw that opportunity and he dramatically changed the nature of the company. And I can share some stories. Perhaps we have a fireside chat after this presentation, and I can perhaps share with you my observations about all of these three companies because there are lessons to be learned of all. Two companies, leaders in their field, half their current size. Two companies, leaders in their field, don't exist today. Their people and their technology live on. And one company which had a near-death experience and is now the most valued company in the world. And it was all, we can talk about how that happened. But coming back to the original presentation, which I had put together, I'm really going to be talking about digital disruption and sustainability. Because my belief is that if you want to be able to continuously disrupt, and if you want to be a successful company, then you have to focus on sustainability. And the previous speaker did talk about it, that if you continue to power your business with fossil fuel, and if you don't look at renewables, then you will have a challenge. So let's start with a quick overview. Digital disruption is like that unexpected plot twist in your favorite TV show. It changes everything. It is transforming traditional industries, creating new business models, and changing the way we live and work. On the other hand, sustainability is all about meeting our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. So if you take disruption and you take sustainability, when these two forces intersect, magic happens. Digital technologies have the potential to enable more sustainable ways of doing business and living our lives. Imagine a world where we use resources efficiently, reduce waste, and promote renewable energy. Sounds like a dream, but like every good story, there is a twist, because digital disruption can also increase energy consumption and generate electronic waste. It's a classic case of with great power comes great responsibility. So the earlier speaker talked a lot about how digital is going to disrupt the world, but what is important is to get that balance between use of digital technology and sustainability. And the interesting thing is that there are many companies today who are doing both digital disruption and sustainability. Traditional companies like Unilever, it's a consumer goods company, has committed to becoming carbon positive by 2030, while also investing in digital technologies to improve supply chain efficiency. DHL, a logistic company, has implemented a carbon neutral delivery program while also using digital technologies like IoT sensors to optimize supply chain operations. The impact of these digital disruption is both on the bottom line as well as in terms of sustainability. And that's why the choices they made in terms of what they're going to disrupt became very, very critical. Tesla as an electric vehicle company is disrupting the automotive industry with its sustainable technology, while also leveraging digital technologies to innovate solutions like over-the-air software updates. You know, I love Tesla. I actually used to like Elon Musk a lot till he took a political stance. After that, I sort of don't have the same level of interest. But I remember 20 years ago, I was visiting the Bay Area. My brother lives there. And he showed me a little shop on the corner where there was fancy-looking cars. And he says, Dada, that belongs to a guy called Elon Musk. He's a playboy. He's built these cars for playboys. It'll go at 120, reach a top speed of 120 kilometers per hour in 3 seconds. But he's a mad guy. 20 years later, my brother has 2 of his cars, which just goes to prove how a madman with a completely different perspective of the world started off focusing only on a $150,000 sports car, but then gradually has made this available across the world and built an infrastructure which goes to prove that electric cars is worthwhile. And then IBM, a technology company which has made sustainability a core part of their business strategy while also driving digital disruption with new technologies like blockchain and AI. But closer home, we have a number of companies which have focused on using digital to help companies become more sustainable, including themselves. TCS has implemented various AI-driven solutions to optimize energy consumption and reduce carbon emissions across its global operations. They use data analytics to monitor and manage energy use in their data centers. You got Reliance Industries. We talked about Geo, but even the petrochemical part of the business has adopted digital technologies to enhance its sustainability efforts, particularly in the petrochemical and refining divisions. And then look at Mahindra and Mahindra has an integrated digital tools to drive its sustainability initiatives, and the company is using AI and data analytics to improve the efficiency of its manufacturing processes, reducing waste and promote sustainable practices across. And it's not just the private companies, but it's also the public sector companies which are taking a lead. So whether it's NTPC or it's ONGC or it's Bharat Electronics, they're all focusing on using digital technologies to actually create a much more sustainable world. So businesses can gain competitive advantage by adopting sustainable technologies. Think about it, cost reductions, increased efficiency, and enhanced brand reputation. It's a win-win situation. Plus, customers love companies that care about the planet. It's like getting extra points for being a very good human. And if your employees are more the Gen Z or the millennials, this is one thing which they like to, the kind of companies they like to work for are the ones which are act like good human beings, but also think about the world. So the other areas where sustainable technology is having or disruptive innovation is happening using technology is we're talking about moving to sustainable energy like solar, wind, and hydropower. We're talking about smart cities, which use technologies like intelligent transportation systems, energy efficient buildings, and smart grids. This hotel, for example, is LEED certified. ITC the ITC Hotel Group actually took a decision nearly 20 years ago that all their hotels would be energy efficient, and therefore they've been able to maintain the cost of operations and efficiency much, much lower. And in the last 20 years, the cost of energy has increased, but because of the way they manage their energy consumption, they've actually been able to maintain their bottom line. And then we have this concept of the circular economy. It's a sustained economic model that aims to eliminate waste and reduce the consumption of the finite resources. So how can you use for sustainable technology for competitive advantage? We've talked about cost reduction, we've talked about increased efficiency, and more important, companies which are driving this kind of technology for sustainability are demonstrating a commitment and a social sustainability, and that's built into their brand. So we've talked about this. I thought I'll just close here. Digital disruption is changing the way business operates. It's been happening for the last 50 years. It will continue, and it will give opportunities to companies for growth and innovation. By embracing digital technology, organizations can drive positive change and create value in new and exciting ways. In my present role as being an independent director on many boards, I constantly get this question, how can we use AI? And the answer and response I give to most managing directors and chairmen of company is first identify the problem. While digital disruption is excellent, the problem is it's like a hammer looking for a nail. If you cannot think of the business innovation or the impact which you want to have, just applying technology for technology's sake is a challenge. And that goes back to my story that technology has a shelf life of a banana. So be clear that, yes, it's good to have digital disruption in changing the ways business operate, but be very clear about the business goals which has to be obtained. Sustainability is actually becoming a key driver of business success. By embracing sustainable technology and practices, organizations can reduce their environmental impact and create long-term value for their stakeholders. And that is becoming increasingly important for most companies. So a lot of the time we spend on board meetings is to look at that. What is the footprint which we will leave behind from a sustainability? And that goes across people, it goes across supply chain, it goes across the use of various different kinds of energy. And it's at the intersection of digital disruption and sustainability that presents exciting possibilities for businesses to create value and drive positive change. By integrating sustainable technology and driving disruptive innovation, organizations can create a sustainable future for themselves and for society. So that's the message I'd like to leave you with, is that digital disruption is here to stay. It's been ongoing for the last 50 years, from punch card machines programming to artificial intelligence, which actually creates its own programs. That's where we are in the span of 50 years, and the future looks even more brighter, or as some people will say, more grimmer. But the application of technology for what purpose becomes very, very critical, and that's the choice which we as humans, as managers, and as CEOs of companies have to make. And we need to make those choices wisely, not just for the bottom line, but also from a sustainability perspective as to what we will leave the planet behind for our children. So it's beyond the balance sheet. And if we can do both, then it will lead to a win-win, both for the planet, as well as for us humans, as well as for the companies we work for. So that's the message I really want to leave you. Those changes, those innovations are actually more permanent because they actually have an impact on everything which we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll request you to ask if they have any questions.
Sure. If there's any questions, not just on what I talked about sustainability, but if you want some, I think we're going to be doing a fireside chat, so perhaps we can hold on to the questions when we're doing the fireside chat. But if there's anything around sustainability and digital disruption, this could be a good time.
If there's any question, otherwise I'm going to ask sir a question. Since I'm a leadership trainer and happiness coach, I'd like to request you to answer this question, please, sir. What are the key leadership lessons that you have learned from your experiences at Microsoft and SBI that can be applied to today's rapidly changing technology landscapes?
So I think the one thing which I've learned in life is that you have to have learning agility. The ability to continuously learn and relearn is actually the hallmark of today's generation or civilization. I'm pretty old, I'm a baby boomer. But I still remember that I used to go to sleep reading manuals when things were in digital, and I used to remember now I'm continuously reading. When I retired in 2017, the one thing which I was extremely concerned and worried about was that how will I continue to learn? Because when you work for a large corporation like Microsoft, you get a chance to meet world leaders, you get a chance to meet the best of CEOs, and you interact with the brightest and sharpest of minds. What happens when you retire? So I've solved that equation. So I am continuously learning. So that is number one. The second is what I've learned from some of the boards of the companies I've with, like for example, State Bank of India. You have to continuously redefine your purpose, who you are. So SBI can be just another bank offering a plethora of financial products and services to its customers, or it can be the Bank of India, and the bank for every Indian, which means that it has to have a variety of different products and services delivered across a multiplicity of channels. Once you've got your purpose right, and the purpose is how you want to be known, not how you want to be known, but how others will see you. If you can get that purpose done and identify the vision of the company, then you can unify the organization. And one of the lessons I've learned from Microsoft is that if you want to make a radical change in terms of your business strategy and revive the fortunes of the company, culture is very, very critical. Even in SBI, when we were on the board, 3 or 4 successive chairpersons were deeply involved in trying to change the culture of the organization to a customer-centric, a customer-friendly, and a company which is willing to take decisions quickly.
Thank
so
you
these
very
would
much,
be the
sir.
3 lessons
Thank you.
I would suggest.
Thank you. May I request you to kindly take your seat?
Yeah.
We are going to have the fireside chat now.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I will request Mr. Anil Valluri, Chairman of the Palo Alto Networks India. May I request you, sir, to kindly come and take your seat. And a huge round of applause for our 2 panelists here for the fireside chat, Mr. Bhaskar Pramanik and Mr. Anil Valluri. Warm welcome to you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bhaskar.
Thanks, Anil. Just for your information, Anil and I go back many, many years. We worked together in Digital Equipment Corporation. We worked together in Sun Microsystems. In fact, when I moved to the United States, Anil actually took over from me as the CEO of Sun Microsystems. And we remained friends ever since.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Thank you. I think it's a privilege and honor for me to have a fireside chat with you. Firstly, in my 40 years of working, I worked more than 1/3 with him. More than 15 years I've reported to him. Learned a lot. He's been a mentor, guru, what have you. And it's again distinct honor for me to be on the same stage with you and ask you a few questions. The idea is to get more out of you for the benefit of audience across business, across your leadership styles, across your favorite one-liners and so on. First, I would like to ask you about, you worked in, of course, for a short while in DCM. I worked with Ratan Tata in Nelco. I worked in DEC, which is one of the first multinational companies to shut up shop in India after Texas Instruments. Worked in Sun Microsystems, Microsoft, in between for a short while in Oracle. So, and then you graduated on to different boards across healthcare, across banks, across tech companies, services companies, and so on. And your experience is rich and varied. My question would be, for the benefit of audience, you navigated the whole punched card, mini computer, client server, internet and cloud eras. And you've seen it all happen in the last 50 years. And you wrote them very successfully. Professionally first and personally, how did you prepare? And then how did you navigate these different waves of technology, particularly in computing? Yeah.
I think this is the message I was trying to give, that we all talk about digital and technology and disruption, but as business managers, as custodians for our shareholders, we sometimes say, let's go use this technology. But that's really not the way technology has to be done. You don't use technology for technology's sake. Let's be very clear. And the reason for that is very clear, because technology has a shelf life of a banana. And I'd like to share this story about Microsoft. When Microsoft was formed by Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, the objective or the vision of Microsoft was to put a PC on everybody's table. That means every family in the world should own a PC. That was its goal, that was its objective. Now, in 2015, by and large, 25% of the world's population had a PC. So would you say that the company had fulfilled its purpose and therefore it should die? The answer was no, because new technology had come, the mobile technology, that gave far greater access to information than a PC could ever do. But Microsoft was not in the PC business, in the mobile phone business, that was Nokia. So therefore, again, the question which the board of Microsoft asked itself, do we need to die? Because we fulfilled our purpose, new technologies have taken over, and they're doing a better job of fulfilling the purpose. So what was the lesson I learned? The lesson I learned was that technology cannot be the reason why a company exists. A Palo Alto network cannot be because it's got the best firewall technology. It can be any other technology in future. It has to continually adapt. So the first thing which Satya Nadella did was to change the purpose of Microsoft, and he said that our purpose is to empower every individual and every enterprise on the planet to achieve more. Now just think about this purpose. It has got nothing to do with technology. So I think what is critical and what is important is to understand technology. I love it, I'm passionate about it, I keep myself abreast about it, but what I'm continuously looking for is what problems can it solve, either at the global level or at the business level. So I think that's the most important, that I'm a technologist, but I'm also a business person, I'm also a problem solver, and therefore, what is the most appropriate technology? And I learned that lesson, in Microsoft, it really came to the fore. It was a dying company in 2014, 2015, has been, and by 2024, it's now the largest company by market cap, including higher than Apple.
Follow-on to that question is, you worked in iconic companies such as DEC, which pioneered the mini computer, created the TCP/IP protocol, did pioneering work on networking, databases, including mail and so on, and integrating a lot of these things in different applications. So they were technology plus applications plus services. Sun was very different. It pioneered the whole concept of network is the computer. You need to go connect up to the value of the network is squared, the number of nodes that are connected to the network is the concept they promoted. And Microsoft, very different, and you articulated that about Microsoft. What's the difference? So two of them don't exist, DEC and Sun. Microsoft still exists. DEC and Sun evolved into another set of companies. DEC moved to Compaq to HP, Sun moved to Oracle. But what is the difference in their culture and GTM? We always talk of killer apps and so on, but what defined when they were so successful at that point in time? What was the one thing that you would say differentiated them on culture and GTM?
So I think if you look at Digital Equipment Corporation, which discovered the mini computer, it was so passionate. It was an engineering company. It focused on creating the best semiconductor chips, the processors. In fact, it was a lot of the digital technologies actually was taken over by Intel. But it was one of the most powerful companies creating and integrated mini computer systems, all the way from chips to the drives, to the CPUs, everything they were doing. And it was focused on engineering excellence and innovation. And their belief was that if the product is good enough, then people will line up and buy it. And that happened up to a certain point of time till the PC came. Because a mini computer still required a lot of IT professionals. A PC became something which any individual could operate. They did not see the future, and because of which their business came down dramatically, and finally they were also bought over, split up into multiple different companies and bought up by other companies. Their technology lives on. Their technology lives in companies like Intel, in Microsoft, in other parts. Their leaders also still exist. Now, if you look at Sun Microsystem, and remember, digital was a one-trick pony. That means it only had one success, which was a mini computer. Then came Sun Microsystems. It was successful on the workstations. It quickly became the #1 on workstations. And workstations in those days were basically used for mechanical CAD and drawings and stuff like that. And they made the best open source workstations in the world. Then they decided they'll move to servers because it became the era of client server. They foresaw that. And they said we can convert our knowledge of workstations into servers. And therefore, in the era of client server, they actually dominated that whole business. And then they said, yes, now the servers are becoming more and more powerful. We can put them into data centers and we can connect all the people to it. And that was the concept of the network is the computer and the beginnings of what we call cloud computing. So this was their constant innovation, looking at new opportunities, reinventing technology to suit those needs. Where did they go wrong? Their belief was that as long as hardware cannot be downloaded over the internet, our business model is safe. People will pay $20 million to buy our servers. When the dot-com bust happened in 2000, that's when their decline happened. Because people were not willing to pay that kind of money for very, very large servers. So that was their mistake. They reinvented themselves, but they got the business model wrong. So that was them. Now what happened in the case of Microsoft? I just told you the story. Microsoft, the PC was dead. They were flogging a dead animal. And that's why, while they were making lots of money by doing what is called attached to the PC, it took somebody to dramatically change the goal and the objective of the company and then come out with technology which propelled them into the era of the cloud, which is where they are now dominating. And then from there they went to AI. Microsoft today is not just one business. It is 10 businesses, each of greater than $20 billion. That's who they are. So DEC, single trick pony, Sun Microsystems, at least 3 products, and now Microsoft is 10 or 20 products. And they're managing it. Right, with a unified vision, common focus on the customer, focusing on consumption. They've changed everything. They changed the way they don't do software licensing anymore. Salespeople are not rewarded by how many licenses you sell. Whole thorough change. And the most important, the cultural change. Microsoft was an arrogant company. It believed it was always right. When Satya took over, it became a much more humble company. A company which doesn't just know it all, but a company wants to learn it all. That made a huge difference. And therefore, it's much more respected than it was before. So, lots of things which can happen, but I think this gives you a sense of, you can be the biggest and the best, but if you don't foresee the future, you don't foresee the trend, if you don't continuously innovate, even as a technology company, then you're doomed for failure. I just wanted to add one more thing. We talked about Elon Musk. Now think about Elon Musk. It's Elon Musk, and all his different companies are not part of one company, which gives him the agility. So he's got Tesla, he's got SpaceX, he's got the boarding company. Each one of them is focusing on solving a different problem, but each one has a different board of directors. It's a completely different companies and different shareholders. Each one of them has got different funding. Right, so that gives you room to maneuver because the success of Tesla does not necessarily, if let's say Tesla wasn't successful, then it wouldn't have impacted SpaceX. And if SpaceX was not successful, it wouldn't have a problem on Tesla. So his structure is not as a conglomerate. It's as separate companies, each one solving a very specific kind of problem. And in the process, creating even more opportunities as we've heard today. I just thought that that was an interesting point which I wanted to share with you. Having one company trying to innovate everything and identifying new opportunities perhaps may not be the best way. The best way would be to create a separate company and a separate subsidiaries.
Interesting. One thing I want to pick your brain on. What happened to Java? It is supposed to be the software that runs the internet. Cloud companies and whole suite of applications survived on Java. People made money out of Java. But Sun pioneered and created Java. So why did they die? I mean, what happened to Java?
So Java still exists, and I still is one of the preferential programming languages for many organizations, but it's not the dominant one anymore. And that's the history of any kind of a technology. It dominates, it then comes down, the new ones come over. That has to be the case. In the case of Sun Microsystems, Java was an accident, but once it was there, they took the decision that they'll open source it and they'll give it away for free. Because like I said, the CEO of Sun Microsystems, he believed that you can download software for free. So why unnecessarily charge for software? Let's just charge for the hardware. But it turns out that that also was not the correct decision. But Java exists even till today.
So
you can get ChatGPT to write a Java program for you.
So they didn't monetize the whole Java
They didn't monetize it.
community.
Because they believe that you can only monetize hardware and not software.
Today's world, it looks so different. That's one crown jewel that they could have monetized, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, hardware is nothing. What about, you worked with Scott McNealy, Steve Jobs, Satya Nadella. How do you define their leadership styles? And you know, you had a ringside view, not just ringside view, but you worked personally with them. Not maybe Steve Jobs, but you have a good understanding of what Steve Jobs did. Between three of them, Scott, Steve Jobs, and Satya Nadella, how would you define their leadership styles?
So,
And I will have a follow-on question to that. Yeah.
So, if you think about Scott, Scott was very brash, very aggressive. I still remember he always used to poke fun at Microsoft. I don't know how many of you remember that era. So I remember once in Chennai, one of the press people asked him, why is it that you never talk about yourself, or Sun Microsystems, but you talk about Microsoft? He says, very simple, if I talked about Sun Microsystems, you wouldn't come and talk to me. If I talk about my competitor, you love to put it down on the press. So he said, that's why I do it, because you want me to do it. So anyway, that's the kind of person he was. But Scott was also believed in a culture where work and play were part and parcel of your job. So always the motto in Sun was kick butt and have fun, because that's who we are. And brash, aggressive, kick butt, be very persuasive. It was very focused on innovation. It was very focused on partnerships. I mean, it was one of the companies which fostered this whole concept of ecosystems, of having partners of different types who actually worked for you. So that was, Sun. If you look at Microsoft, and I'll talk more about it from a Satya Nadella perspective, because he changed and transformed it completely. This is a company which does everything on scale. It's not interested in anything which is one-off. It is interested in solving problems, not at an individual company level, but at an industry level or at a global level. Everything about it is about solving problems at scale. Number two is, it is about engineering and innovation. That lives on from Bill Gates. So it is focused on always reinventing and creating something new, but protecting the legacy. It's very clear that any piece of code which Microsoft has ever written will run on the latest version. Now that sometimes can create a problem, but that's the principle. It's a very empathic company, very focused on customers. The culture has changed where people want to learn, want to listen to the customer, and are willing to go back and then change their pattern or how they want to go about. Very much more flexible. And it's very clear, they also understand that competition is not to be envied, but competition, it's customers which are more critical. So in the Steve Ballmer days, we always used to say, we're going to kill this guy, we're going to kill that guy. Satya says nothing, let them do what they want. We will focus on our customers and give the customers what we want, not copy what others want to do. So it's a very innovative company, customer obsessed, very empathic, very, very customer friendly, and again driven by partners. If you look at
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, I've never had the opportunity to work with Steve Jobs, but he was obsessed by products, obsessed by customer, obsessed on engineering excellence, on quality, and he believed that the customer doesn't know what is good for him. He believed that he knew better than what the customer. He was also very, very aggressive in the Silicon Valley. But he was at the core, he was an inventor, creating something new in the same league as perhaps an Elon Musk. He challenged the current status quo.
Very interesting. So he didn't believe customers knew nothing. I mean.
Otherwise, all their products wouldn't have happened if you had asked a customer. If you ask a customer, did you know, in those days it was a Walkman, and if you have gone and says that, you know, what kind of music player would you require, they would have taken a Walkman and added a few frills here and there. But he came out with something called the iPod, which was completely revolutionized how songs were distributed.
So, in your long career, picking from some of these leaders you worked with, what core belief systems that you had as a leader? It is all about inspiring people, leading them to path of success. What you believed is from a core standpoint, your belief system, what's few of them?
So I think what I've learned from all of them is that you've got to have a sense of purpose. You have to have a vision. You have to have a set of core values. And if you can stay true to all of those, and you can share that with the rest of the organization, then I think you can be very, very successful. So I think it's, success is teamwork. Success is not in a single individual, it's teamwork. It's heavily dependent on everybody believing in you, everybody believing in the same values, the same sense of purpose. And that's one thing I've learned. I've also learned that if you don't keep changing and innovating every 2 to 3 years, then you're obsolete. So even when I was in Microsoft, and even now, I ask myself, if I was in Sun, how would I have done this problem? How would I have solved this problem? And if the answer was the same as I would have done it in DEC, then I knew it was wrong. So even now on the boards of different companies which I am, and we look at the problems, like for example, I'm on the board of a very small finance bank, and I used to be on the board of State Bank of India, and whenever we have a problem and I ask myself this question, how did we solve it in SBI, it's just not appropriate to solve the same problem with Unity Finance Bank, because they're much smaller. Their whole approach is different, the customers are different. So, you know, you have to be very clear that over time, in the same company or over time in different companies, you have to change the way you look at things. And always ask yourself this question. I mean, one of the things about enjoying life is ask yourself, when was the last time you did something for the first time? I still do it at the age of 70. I'm always looking for those new experiences. So I still remember at the age of 70, I did a zip line. I enjoyed it. I haven't done it after that, but always look for that opportunity to do something new.
So we are running out of time. I have one last question. Kolkata is a cricket crazy city. I want to ask you something which you are not familiar with, but still, who's your favorite, Dhoni, Gavaskar or Ganguly?
Dhoni.
And why?
Dhoni.
And why?
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the 3 CEOs, right? So if I think about Scott McNealy, brash, aggressive, challenging the status quo, wanting everybody to have a good time, that's short of Ganguly. That's the way he captained. If you think about Satya Nadella, thoughtful, strategic, always working with his people, very clear-cut strategy and intent, that's Dhoni. And if you look at Gavaskar, it is about excellence. I mean, he was a batsman par excellence. He was very good both on the strategy and the tactical side, very measured. That was digital. A guy called Ken Olsen. Very measured.
Thank you.
So, I always look for these comparisons, but cricket is a good way to look at leadership styles, and you'll find the parallels in the industry.
Thank you, Bhaskar. I think we are done with the time, but thank you. It's a great honor to be with you.
No, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhaskar Pramanik and Mr. Anil Valluri. May I request Mr. Didi Prokastha, Director of AVP Private Limited, to kindly come forward and felicitate both our speakers here today. Thank you very much, Mr. Anil Valluri, Chairman of Palo Alto Networks India. Thank you very much, sir. We'd also like to request Mr. Didi Prokastha to felicitate Mr. Bhaskar Pramanik. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. To both our speakers, we'd like to request you to take your seat in the hall, and I'd thank you, Mr. Didi Prokastha, Director of ABP Private Limited. Thank you very much, sir.